Wrong house, wrong black boy, doesn't matter. Time for a lesson. Detective Frank Wilson's boot explodes through Brian Davis's front door at 12:03 a.m. Wood splinters shower across the entryway like shrapnel. 4 officers storm through the destroyed doorframe, tactical flashlights slicing through Henderson's subdivision darkness. Brian emerges from his bedroom in boxer shorts and a t-shirt, hands raised. But something's off about his posture. Too controlled. Too professional. Get your black ass on the ground before I put it there myself. Wilson shoves Brian face first into his own living room floor. Brian doesn't fight back, doesn't beg. His breathing stays steady like he's been trained for this exact situation. Which is strange. Very strange. Some doors shouldn't be kicked down. Some men aren't who they appear to be. And some mistakes have consequences that reach far beyond one corrupt cop's imagination. In 10 minutes, this house will be surrounded. Wilson's world is about to change forever. And the quiet man on his living room floor? He's not nearly as helpless as he looks. The destroyed door hangs off its hinges. Wilson feels powerful, in control. He has no idea how wrong he is. 3 hours earlier, Brian Davis waters his front lawn in Henderson subdivision. Tuesday routine at 9:15 p.m. The sprinkler system needs manual adjustment again. 3rd time this month. His neighbors wave from their driveways, heading home from late shifts at Allegiant Stadium, McCarran Airport, and the strip casinos that never sleep. "Evening, Brian," calls Mrs. Patterson from across the street, wrestling grocery bags from her Honda Civic. "Working late again?" "Consulting work," he replies with practiced ease, adjusting the spray nozzle. "Client presentation tomorrow morning. Technology implementation for a security firm. You know how these corporate types are about their deadlines." She doesn't know how it really is. None of them do, Mrs. Patterson thinks Brian helps companies install computer systems. Brian's duplex sits quietly among cookie-cutter homes built for middle management and civil servants. Solar panels glint under streetlights. Xeriscaped yards showcase HOA-approved desert landscaping. Rock gardens instead of grass. The kind of neighborhood where everyone minds their business and assumes their neighbors lead ordinary, predictable lives just like theirs. His mailbox overflows with consulting invoices from Dataflow Solutions LLC, home improvement catalogs, pizza coupons, and credit card offers. Electric bills under Brian Davis's name showing moderate usage. Netflix subscription automatically renewed. Gym membership at 24-Hour Fitness on Eastern Avenue. Normal suburban paper trail built over 18 careful months. Nothing suspicious. Nothing federal. Brian has perfected this middle-class camouflage down to the smallest detail. The garage holds a modest silver Toyota Camry with 87,000 miles, Craftsman gardening tools still dusty from weekend yard work, and cardboard boxes labeled marketing materials that actually contain real marketing brochures and software manuals. Neighbors see a divorced consultant rebuilding his life after moving from California following a messy separation. They don't see the man who disappears for 3 or 4 days at a time, returning with the kind of bone-deep exhaustion that comes from tracking dangerous people through casino back rooms, police union meetings, and late-night money drops in warehouse districts. His refrigerator displays Emma's school photos. His 12-year-old daughter who lives with his ex-wife Jennifer in Phoenix. Soccer team schedules magneted next to grocery lists. Parent-teacher conference reminders. Pizza delivery magnets. Normal divorced dad stuff scattered across stainless steel. The kind of personal details that make cover stories not just believable, but genuinely lived in. Real relationships with real consequences. At 9:47 p.m., Brian's secure Samsung phone buzzes once with an encrypted message from Special Agent Sarah Johnson at FBI Las Vegas field office. Progress update needed on Operation Clean Sweep. Wilson's crew has accelerated their timeline significantly. Casino money is moving through police union accounts faster than expected. Captain Rodriguez getting nervous about federal attention. Brian types back carefully. Target remains completely unaware. Network mapping 97% complete. Financial trails confirmed through 3 casino sources. Recommend proceed to Phase 3 within 48 hours maximum. He powers down the phone, slides it into a hidden compartment behind his bathroom mirror next to his service Glock 19 and leather federal credentials wallet. Returns to being suburban consultant Brian Davis, who watches Netflix true crime documentaries and complains about HOA fees at monthly meetings. At 11:15 p.m., he settles into bed with his worn paperback copy of Tom Clancy's Clear and Present Danger. Ironic reading choice, considering his actual life makes Clancy's political fiction look like harmless children's bedtime stories. The house feels peaceful tonight, safe, ordinary, exactly as designed through months of careful preparation. Wilson's about to shatter that carefully constructed peace forever. 12:03 a.m. Brian's front door explodes inward like a bomb detonating. Las Vegas Metro Police, search warrant! Detective Frank Wilson leads the charge through the destroyed door frame, followed by Officers Martinez, Thompson, and Garcia. 4 tactical flashlights slice through Henderson subdivision darkness like predatory eyes hunting prey. Brian jolts awake in his bedroom, heart hammering against his ribs. Hands where we can see them! Get up! Now! Brian raises his hands slowly, deliberately. Federal training kicks in automatically. Comply, observe, survive, gather intelligence. Wilson's flashlight beam blinds him temporarily. The acrid smell of Wilson's cheap cologne mixes with pure adrenaline and freshly splintered wood fragments scattered across his hardwood floors. Step out of bed. Keep those hands visible or I'll drop you right here. Brian complies without hesitation. Boxer shorts and a faded gray FBI Academy t-shirt that Wilson can't read clearly in the chaotic darkness. Wilson shoves him toward the living room with unnecessary brutality, rough hands patting down for weapons that aren't there. What's this about, officers? Brian asks. His voice stays remarkably calm, too calm for someone being brutalized at midnight. Shut your mouth. You'll find out when we decide to tell you. Mrs. Patterson's porch light flickers across the street like a beacon. Then another neighbor's light. Then 3 more. Henderson subdivision doesn't see midnight police raids. Ever. Neighbors emerge cautiously onto their driveways, cell phones already recording everything. Ring doorbells capture the destruction in high-definition digital evidence that will haunt Wilson later. Wilson handcuffs Brian with deliberate, punishing force. Metal bites deep into his wrists, cutting circulation. Brian doesn't resist or complain. His breathing remains controlled, professional, exactly like someone who's been trained for this exact scenario. Search warrant for what specific crime? Brian tries again, using precise legal language. I said, shut up, boy, don't make me repeat myself again. That racial slur hangs in the night air like poisonous gas. Mrs. Patterson's 17-year-old son starts live streaming on Instagram stories. Police brutality begins trending in Henderson within 4 minutes of the door being kicked. Officer Martinez sweeps through Brian's kitchen methodically, overturning drawers, spilling coffee grounds and utensils across clean counters. Thompson ransacks the master bedroom, throwing clothes from dresser drawers. Garcia photographs everything with his department-issued digital camera. Standard search protocol being executed. Except there's no visible warrant anywhere in sight. Where's your search warrant paperwork? Brian asks quietly, professionally. Wilson backhands him hard across the mouth without warning. You don't ask questions in my city. We ask questions. You answer or suffer consequences. Blood trickles from Brian's split lip down his chin. He doesn't wipe it away. Can't with handcuffs restraining his movement. Neighbors gasp audibly from their windows and doorways. More phones start recording the assault. Social media notifications ping constantly. Brian? Mrs. Patterson calls from her driveway, voice shaking with concern. Brian, honey, are you okay? What's happening? Ma'am, step back inside your house immediately, Wilson shouts aggressively. This is official police business. Do not interfere. She doesn't step back inside. Instead, she calls 911, describing what she's witnessing to emergency dispatch in real time. 7 other neighbors follow her example. Emergency services receive multiple separate calls about possible police brutality in progress at 447 Sunrise Lane. Brian studies Wilson's face carefully in the scattered, chaotic flashlight beams, bloodshot eyes indicating alcohol consumption, whiskey smell on his breath mixing with rage. This isn't legitimate police business. This is personal, vengeful, targeted intimidation disguised as law enforcement. Martinez emerges from the kitchen empty-handed. Nothing suspicious in there, Frank, just normal kitchen stuff. Thompson returns from the bedroom equally frustrated. Clean. Too clean. Like he was expecting us. Wilson's visible frustration builds dangerously. Whatever evidence they came looking for, they're not finding it anywhere. Brian's cover identity remains absolutely perfect. Consulting materials scattered naturally, family photos positioned believably, normal suburban life with 0 cracks showing. But Wilson's growing desperation is about to turn violent. The Ring doorbell footage spreads faster than wildfire through Henderson's Nextdoor app. Mrs. Patterson's live stream gains 47 viewers in 3 minutes, then doubles every 30 seconds as shares multiply across Facebook and Instagram. Emergency dispatch receives 9 separate 911 calls reporting police brutality in progress at 447 Sunrise Lane within 6 minutes. "This is unconscionable," whispers Mr. Carter from 2 houses down, his iPhone recording through his living room window. "They're treating him like an animal. Where's their warrant? Where's their supervisor? This isn't how police are supposed to behave." Wilson drags Brian across his own living room by the handcuff chain, metal cutting deeper into his wrists with each violent jerk. Brian stumbles but doesn't fall completely. His balance stays centered, athletic, controlled despite the restraints. Neighbors notice how he moves, trained, deliberate, nothing like a panicked civilian under brutal assault. "Where's the money?" Wilson demands, slamming Brian against his dining room wall with savage force. Family photos of Emma rattle in their frames, glass cracking audibly. "We know you've been talking to people, making phone calls, asking questions about things that don't concern your black ass." Brian says nothing. His calculated silence enrages Wilson further. "I'm talking to you, boy. Are you deaf or just stupid? Answer me when I'm speaking to you." Thompson emerges from the garage, shaking his head in visible frustration. "Nothing out there either, Frank. Just car maintenance stuff and lawn equipment. Guy's got detailed receipts for everything going back 2 years. The crowd outside grows rapidly in the summer heat. 12 neighbors now, phones raised like electronic torches in the darkness. Mrs. Patterson calls her daughter Sarah, who works as a producer at Channel 8 News. "Something terrible is happening to Brian," she whispers urgently into her phone. "They're hurting him, and I don't think they have any legal right to be here at all." Garcia returns from the bathroom search, equally empty-handed and increasingly uncomfortable. No drugs anywhere, no weapons stashed, no cash bundles, no paraphernalia. This guy's cleaner than my grandmother's spotless kitchen. Wilson's face darkens with each negative report. This was supposed to be simple, straightforward intimidation. Break in, find evidence of Brian's snooping around casino operations, plant drugs if absolutely necessary, teach him a permanent lesson about staying in his proper lane. Instead, they're performing an obviously illegal home invasion in front of multiple recording devices. "Check his computer hard drive," Wilson orders desperately. "Phone records, bank statements, email history, social media accounts. Something incriminating is here somewhere." Martinez boots up Brian's Dell desktop computer. The screen fills with consulting presentations, boring client emails, and Netflix viewing history. Spotify playlists featuring classic rock. Amazon purchase receipts for lawn equipment and household supplies. Nothing remotely suspicious anywhere. Brian's digital footprint screams, "Boring suburban contractor who watches too much television." "Frank," Martinez says quietly, growing visibly uncomfortable, Maybe we got bad intelligence here. This guy looks completely legitimate. Intel's rock solid, Wilson snaps back aggressively. Rodriguez confirmed it personally this afternoon at the union meeting. This piece of garbage has been asking pointed questions about union business, about our casino security arrangements. Someone's definitely paying him to sniff around our operations. Brian's ears perk up sharply at Rodriguez. Captain Miguel Rodriguez, Las Vegas Metro Police Union President. The man taking monthly kickbacks from Bellagio security contracts. The spider at the center of the corruption web Brian's been methodically mapping for 18 months. Outside, the crowd reaches 15 concerned residents. Mrs. Patterson's daughter, Sarah, arrives with veteran Channel 8 news cameraman Pete Kowalski, equipment already rolling. We received multiple reports of possible police misconduct, she announces clearly to Wilson through the destroyed front door. Can you provide any official comment on the nature of this investigation? Wilson panics visibly. Media attention wasn't part of tonight's plan whatsoever. This was supposed to be quiet, off-the-books intimidation, not public spectacle broadcast across social media platforms. This is an ongoing criminal investigation. No comment available to media. Clear the area immediately for officer safety. Do you have a valid warrant for this residential search? Reporter Sarah Patterson presses professionally. Wilson doesn't answer. Can't answer honestly, because there is absolutely no warrant. Thompson finds Brian's secure Samsung phone hidden behind the bathroom mirror. Got something interesting, Frank. Burner phone, password protected, heavy encryption. Wilson's eyes light up with vicious satisfaction. Now we're finally getting somewhere useful. Unlock it immediately. Can't crack it. Heavily encrypted. Government-grade security software. Brian's pulse quickens for the first time tonight. That phone contains 18 months of painstakingly gathered federal evidence. Surveillance photographs of corrupt officers. Wire recordings of casino meetings. Financial documents that could expose Operation Clean Sweep before arrests can be properly executed. Wilson grabs a hammer from Brian's garage toolbox, raises it menacingly above the phone's screen. Wait, Brian says quietly, showing his first real sign of genuine concern all evening. Wilson smiles like a predator finally sensing weakness in his prey. Now you want to talk to us? The neighbors outside press closer to the illuminated windows, phones recording every threatening word, social media posts multiplying exponentially across platforms. Justice for Brian trending across Las Vegas within 8 minutes. Brian makes a calculated decision that will change everything. That phone contains my daughter's photos, Brian says calmly. Personal family memories. Nothing illegal. Wilson studies Brian's face. Something's different about this guy. Most people would be crying by now, begging, breaking down under pressure. Brian Davis sits perfectly still, back straight, breathing controlled like he's meditating instead of being brutalized. You're awfully calm for someone whose house just got kicked in, Wilson observes suspiciously. Brian shrugs. Panic doesn't solve problems. Clear thinking does. That phrase stops Wilson cold. Clear thinking does. That's tactical doctrine. Military training, law enforcement academy language. Civilians don't talk like that under stress. Martinez notices it too. Frank, look at how he's sitting. Hands positioned for quick movement despite the cuffs. Eyes tracking all 4 of us simultaneously. This isn't normal civilian behavior. Brian realizes his training is showing. 18 months of suburban camouflage, and now professional instincts are bleeding through his cover. He adjusts his posture slightly, tries to look more helpless. Too late. What's your military background? Wilson demands. No military background, Brian answers truthfully. FBI Academy isn't military. Technically. Bullshit. You move like a cop, sit like a cop, talk like a cop. Outside, Mrs. Patterson's live stream reaches 300 viewers. Comments flood in from across Las Vegas. This man is too calm. Something's not right here. Why isn't he more scared? Thompson searches Brian's closet more carefully now, looking for uniforms, tactical gear, anything that explains Brian's unusual composure. Finds only consulting clothes and weekend casual wear. Check his shoes, Wilson orders. Boots. Look for tactical boots. Garcia examines Brian's footwear. Nike running shoes, Adidas sneakers, one pair of dress shoes for client meetings. No tactical boots, no military surplus, no law enforcement equipment anywhere. But Brian's behavior keeps triggering their cop instincts. You've been through this before, Wilson states. Not a question. Been through what? Interrogation, arrest. You know the drill too well. Brian stays silent. Wilson circles him like a predator studying unusual prey. Most civilians panic when 4 armed men kick down their door. You didn't even raise your voice. That's training. Professional training. Martinez finds Brian's gym membership card. 24-hour fitness. Says here he's in their self-defense classes. Krav Maga. Wilson's suspicion deepens. Self-defense, huh? What else you studying, Brian? Tactical driving? Weapons handling? Just trying to stay in shape after my divorce. The neighbors outside grow more organized. Sarah Patterson's news report goes live on Channel 8. Good evening. I'm reporting from Henderson, where police have conducted what appears to be a warrantless search of a resident's home. The man being detained shows unusual calm during this ordeal, leading to questions about his background. Wilson's radio crackles. Dispatch reports media on scene. Captain Rodriguez's voice comes through clearly. Wilson, what's your status? We're getting calls about news crews. Brian's ears perk up at Rodriguez's voice. The man he's been investigating is personally monitoring this raid. That confirms this isn't random police work. This is targeted intimidation ordered from the top. Everything's under control, Captain, Wilson lies into his radio. Better be. Make it quick and clean. Rodriguez clicks off. Wilson stares at Brian with new intensity. You know what I think? I think you're not just asking questions about casino business. I think you're working for someone. Internal affairs, maybe. Or worse. Brian's pulse quickens slightly. Wilson's getting dangerously close to the truth. I'm a technology consultant, nothing more. Technology consultants don't have federal-grade encryption on their phones. It's for client confidentiality. Wilson raises the hammer again. Last chance. Who are you really working for? The crowd outside has grown to 25 people. Multiple live streams running simultaneously. Henderson police trending on Twitter. The story is going viral in real time. Brian makes a calculated decision. He can't reveal his FBI identity yet, but he can plant seeds of doubt in Wilson's mind, make him nervous, make him make mistakes. You should be very careful, Detective Wilson, Brian says quietly. Is that a threat? It's advice. Some people have friends in high places. Wilson's confidence wavers for the first time tonight. Wilson's radio crackles again at 12:18 a.m. Captain Rodriguez sounds increasingly agitated through the static interference. Status report immediately, Wilson. What's your current situation? Still conducting the search, Captain. Targets being uncooperative, but we're making progress on the intelligence gathering. Find what we specifically discussed this afternoon and get out fast. Too much civilian attention developing. Neighbors calling media outlets. What we specifically discussed. Brian files that phrase away mentally as Wilson clicks off his radio. Clear evidence of premeditated conspiracy, not random police work or legitimate law enforcement activity. 3 blocks away in the Desert Inn parking lot, FBI Special Agent Sarah Johnson sits in an unmarked surveillance van, monitoring Brian's subcutaneous biometric tracker through real-time satellite feed. His heart rate spiked twice in the last 5 minutes. Not panic or fear, but professional recognition. Controlled interest. Chief's giving us subtle signals through biofeedback. She radios to the Federal Tactical Response Team positioned strategically around Henderson subdivision. Something's definitely accelerating our original timeline. Possible compromise situation developing. Back inside Brian's ransacked living room, Martinez discovers detailed financial documents in his mahogany desk drawer. Bank statements showing steady consulting income over 18 months. Credit reports. Investment portfolio summaries. Nothing remotely suspicious for a technology consultant. But Wilson examines them with unusual intensity for what should be a drug possession raid. "This guy's got $47,000 in personal savings," Wilson announces to his team. "What kind of consultant accumulates that much liquid cash?" "Someone who doesn't spend money on drugs or gambling," Brian suggests calmly, reasonably. Wilson backhands him again, harder this time. Brian's federal training kicks in automatically. He rolls with the impact, redirecting force, minimizing potential damage to his jaw and teeth. Another distinctly professional response that Wilson notices immediately. "There, right fucking there. You know exactly how to take a hit without sustaining serious injury. That's advanced combat training, not civilian self-defense classes." Thompson finds Brian's laptop computer browsing history cached in temporary files. "Frank, you need to look at this immediately. He's been systematically researching Nevada Police Union finances. News articles about casino security contracts, public database searches on law enforcement salary discrepancies." Wilson's face goes visibly white beneath his tactical flashlight beam. "What the hell are you investigating us for? Who's paying you?" "Research for a consulting client. Casino security technology implementation." "Bullshit. What client specifically? Give me names." Brian maintains calculated silence. Wilson's desperation grows increasingly visible to his backup officers. Outside, the concerned crowd reaches 30 neighbors and growing. Mrs. Patterson's Channel 8 live stream has accumulated 4,000 active viewers across multiple social media platforms. Comments pour in continuously. "Call the FBI immediately." "This looks completely illegal. Where's their search warrant?" The story spreads across social media faster than Wilson can possibly contain or control it. 3 miles away, Sarah Johnson receives encrypted status updates from Detective Martinez, the clean cop wearing an FBI wire for 18 months of deep cover work. His voice transmission comes through crystal clear. "Wilson's entering panic mode. Found detailed financial research on police unions and casino connections. Brian's not breaking character completely, but his professional training keeps bleeding through his cover. We need extraction protocols ready for immediate deployment." Martinez, still performing his role as corrupt backup officer, secretly photographs Brian's research materials with a hidden camera sewn into his tactical vest. Additional evidence for the expanding federal case. Garcia searches Brian's attached garage more thoroughly, systematically. Finds detailed maintenance records for the Toyota Camry. Oil change receipts from Jiffy Lube. Tire rotation documentation from Discount Tire. Everything appears perfectly normal for suburban vehicle ownership except for one notable detail. The handwritten mileage logs show frequent trips to Phoenix, Arizona. "Phoenix," Wilson mutters suspiciously. "That's where Rodriguez mentioned the Federal Organized Crime Task Force operates their field office from." Brian's blood runs cold. Rodriguez knows about Operation Clean Sweep's Phoenix operational connections. The corruption network runs significantly deeper than federal investigators originally realized. Thompson discovers Brian's secure Samsung phone has attempted multiple connections to encrypted federal communication networks. The phone's metadata, visible in the security access logs, shows regular communication with confirmed FBI servers. "Frank, this phone's been actively communicating with federal law enforcement networks, encrypted channels, government protocols." Wilson grabs Brian by the throat with both hands. "You're a federal agent." "You're a fucking undercover federal agent." "I'm a technology consultant with government clients." "Complete bullshit. No private consultant needs this level of military-grade encryption. No consultant researches police union finances this extensively. No consultant stays this professionally calm under intense interrogation." Wilson's radio erupts with Rodriguez's increasingly frantic voice. Abort operation immediately. Abort now. Federal vehicles spotted approaching the neighborhood perimeter. Extract your team and get out immediately. But Wilson's too consumed with rage to listen to direct orders. 18 months of taking substantial casino money, and now this seemingly ordinary suburban consultant might expose their entire corruption network. "Where's your federal badge hidden?" Wilson screams, violently tearing through Brian's personal belongings. "Where are your official credentials stored?" Martinez's hidden FBI camera captures Wilson's explicit confession about casino money payments, federal evidence accumulating in real time for prosecution. Sarah Johnson's voice crackles urgently through Martinez's concealed earpiece. Target's cover blown completely. Wilson knows Brian's federal law enforcement. Initiate emergency extraction procedures in 60 seconds maximum. The neighbors outside clearly hear Wilson screaming about federal agents through the destroyed front door. Social media platforms explode with wild speculation. Hashtag federal agent trends nationally alongside hashtag Henderson police within minutes. Brian makes deliberate eye contact with Martinez, the only honest police officer in the room. Martinez gives an almost imperceptible professional nod. Federal backup is approaching fast. Wilson discovers Brian's spare FBI credentials hidden behind a false wall panel in the master bedroom closet. The black leather wallet contains his authentic federal identification: Special Agent Brian Davis, Federal Bureau of Investigation, Organized Crime Task Force Division. Wilson's entire corrupt world collapses instantly. "You son of a bitch! You're the FBI! You've been systematically investigating our operations for months." "Actually," Brian says with perfect calm, 18 months of comprehensive investigation. Wilson draws his service weapon, pointing it directly at Brian's forehead. "Federal agent or not, you're not walking out of this house alive tonight." Through the destroyed front door, multiple tactical flashlights begin approaching rapidly. Federal agents have arrived. Wilson's gun trembles against Brian's temple. "Drop your weapons and step back, or the Fed dies right here." But the tactical lights outside aren't federal backup. They're more corrupt cops responding to Rodriguez's emergency call. Sergeant Collins, Detective Hayes, and Officer Brennan, all part of the casino kickback network Brian has been mapping. "Situation's contained," Collins announces, entering through the destroyed door. "Perimeter secured. No federal vehicles in sight." Wilson's relief is visible. "Thank God. We need to end this problem permanently." Brian's heart rate spikes. His federal backup team thinks he's in control. They don't know Wilson found his credentials. Sarah Johnson's surveillance shows normal biometrics. Brian's training masks his genuine fear. Rodriguez wants him moved to a secondary location, Hayes reports. "Too many witnesses here, too much social media attention." "What secondary location?" Wilson asks. "Warehouse District, Pier 19. Same place we handled the Martinez problem." Martinez. Detective Carlos Martinez, who went missing 6 months ago. Brian thought Martinez had been transferred. Now he realizes Martinez is probably dead, murdered by this same group for asking too many questions. "Sir," the clean Detective Martinez interrupts carefully, "maybe we should follow proper procedures. Book him officially. Let the system handle—" "Shut up, Martinez," Collins snaps. "You're new to our arrangement. Rodriguez makes decisions about federal problems." Brian studies room dynamics. 7 corrupt officers now, 1 clean cop trying to protect him without blowing his own cover, 30 neighbors outside with cameras. This situation is escalating beyond anyone's control. Wilson presses his gun harder against Brian's skull. "You recorded our conversations, didn't you? Wire recordings? Financial documents? How much evidence do you have?" "Enough," Brian says quietly. "Enough for what? Arrests? Indictments? How many of us are you planning to destroy?" "All of you." Wilson hits Brian with the gun butt, opening a gash above his eyebrow. Blood streams down his face. The crowd outside gasps audibly, phones recording every brutal moment. "Load him in Collins's van," Wilson orders. "Take him to Pier 19. Rodriguez wants to question him personally before we make this problem disappear." Mrs. Patterson's daughter reports live. Police brutality escalating rapidly here in Henderson. The man appears to be bleeding from a head wound. Multiple officers are involved in what residents describe as excessive force. Rodriguez's voice crackles over all their radios simultaneously. Wilson, cease all radio communication immediately. Switch to backup channel 7. Media monitoring our frequencies. The corrupt officers switch to encrypted radio channels, but Martinez's FBI wire captures everything they say. This is getting too public, Hayes worries. Channel 8 has 4 camera crews en route. Social media's exploding. We need to abort. Can't abort now, Wilson responds desperately. He knows everything. 18 months of investigation. Financial records, wire recordings. If he talks, we're all facing federal prison. Collins opens his police van doors. Move him now, before more media arrives. Brian realizes this is his last chance to signal federal backup. He catches Martinez's eye and mouths silently, Phoenix Protocol. Phoenix Protocol, emergency extraction code for blown operations. Martinez nods almost imperceptibly. Wilson drags Brian toward the van, gun still pressed against his head. You should have minded your own business, Fed boy. Should have stayed out of Vegas. Actually, Brian says loudly enough for the neighbors to hear, I should have brought more backup. Wilson pauses. What backup? Your federal friends don't know where you are. Are you sure about that? Doubt flickers across Wilson's face. He keys his radio. Rodriguez, are we certain of no federal surveillance in the area? Negative federal presence confirmed, Rodriguez responds. Proceed with relocation and interrogation. But Rodriguez is wrong. Sarah Johnson's team has been monitoring everything through Martinez's wire and Brian's biometric tracker. Federal agents are positioning for tactical intervention. The crowd outside grows bolder. Mrs. Patterson steps forward with her phone. Officer, we need to see your warrant for this arrest. Step back, ma'am, or you'll be arrested for obstruction. On what charges? For asking to see proper documentation? Collins points his weapon toward the crowd. Everyone step back now! 30 neighbors with phones don't step back. They step closer, recording everything. Social media posts multiply exponentially. #CorruptCops trends nationally within minutes. Martinez keys his radio on the FBI frequency. Phoenix Protocol initiated. Request immediate tactical response. Officers threatening civilian crowds with weapons. Wilson forces Brian into the van. Drive to Pier 19. We end this tonight. As the van pulls away from Brian's house, Sarah Johnson's voice comes through Martinez's earpiece. Federal response teams converging on Pier 19. ETA 6 minutes. Maintain surveillance and report position. The neighbors watch helplessly as police drive away with their bloodied neighbor. Mrs. Patterson calls Channel 8 again. They're taking him to some warehouse. This isn't an arrest. This looks like a kidnapping. Rodriguez's voice crackles through all corrupt officer radios. Federal involvement confirmed. FBI task force active in Las Vegas. Operational security compromised. Prepare for scorched earth protocols. Scorched earth. Brian knows what that means from organized crime cases. They're planning to kill everyone who knows about their corruption. The police van speeds through empty Las Vegas streets toward the warehouse district. Brian sits handcuffed in the back, blood still trickling from his head wound. Wilson keeps his gun trained on him while Collins drives, and Hayes monitors police radio frequencies. Federal task force is real, Hayes reports grimly. Rodriguez just confirmed 18 months of investigation. They know about the casino money. They know about the union kickbacks. They know everything. Wilson's face contorts with rage and desperation. How long have you been recording us, you piece of shit? Long enough, Brian says quietly. For the first time in 18 months of deep cover work, Brian feels genuine fear. Not for himself, federal agents accept these risks, but for the innocent people his investigation might destroy. Mrs. Patterson and her neighbors. Detective Martinez trying to stay alive while maintaining his cover. His daughter Emma, who still doesn't know Daddy's real job involves hunting dangerous people. You ruined our lives, Collins says bitterly from the driver's seat. 20 years on the force. Good service record. Pension almost vested. Now what? Federal prison because of your investigation? Brian understands their desperation, but feels no sympathy. You ruined your own lives when you started taking casino money. Wilson pistol whips him again. Shut up. We're dead men because of you. 47 officers facing federal charges. Families destroyed. Children are going to grow up knowing their fathers are criminals. The van approaches Pier 19, an abandoned warehouse complex where Las Vegas Metro stores decommissioned vehicles. Perfect location for making problems disappear permanently. Brian's federal training recognizes the tactical disadvantage immediately. Isolated, no witnesses, multiple escape routes for the corrupt officers. Brian's secure phone, still in Wilson's possession, buzzes with an encrypted message. Sarah Johnson trying to reach him with extraction coordinates. Wilson answers instead. Federal bitch, your boy's about to have a very bad accident. As Sarah's voice comes through clearly. Detective Wilson, you're interfering with a federal investigation. Release Agent Davis immediately. Wilson laughs maniacally. Agent Davis is about to have a fatal encounter with some very dangerous criminals. Tragic loss of life during undercover operation gone wrong. He smashes the phone against the van's metal wall, destroying Brian's last communication link with federal backup. No more federal contact, Wilson announces triumphantly. Now you're completely alone. But Brian isn't completely alone. Detective Martinez, still wearing his FBI wire, follows in a separate patrol car. Federal agents are tracking his location through GPS. Sarah Johnson's tactical team is converging on Pier 19 from 3 directions. The van arrives at the abandoned warehouse. Collins parks behind stacks of rusted police vehicles where satellite surveillance can't penetrate. Wilson drags Brian out roughly, pushing him toward a corrugated metal building that looks like a slaughterhouse. This is where Carlos Martinez had his accident, Wilson explains with cruel satisfaction. I fell down some stairs, repeatedly, into a concrete mixer. Brian's blood runs cold. Detective Carlos Martinez, not the same person as their current clean Detective Martinez, was murdered here 6 months ago for investigating the same corruption network. Rodriguez will be here in 10 minutes, Hayes reports. I want to personally question the Fed about recorded evidence before we dispose of the problem. Wilson forces Brian into the warehouse. The smell hits him immediately. Old motor oil, rust, and something else. Something organic and rotten. Death. Scared now, Fed boy? Wilson taunts. No backup coming. No federal cavalry. Just you and us, and a very deep hole. Brian's training kicks in. Assess the environment, count exits, calculate distances, plan escape routes. But handcuffed and outnumbered 7-1, his options remain extremely limited. My daughter Emma, Brian says quietly. She's 12 years old, lives in Phoenix with her mother. If something happens to me, she'll never know what really happened to her father. Should have thought about that before you started investigating us, Collins responds without emotion. She thinks I'm a boring technology consultant, safe job, normal life. She'll spend years wondering why her daddy never came home. Wilson wavers slightly. He has children, too. Shut up about your kid. Emma wants to be a police officer when she grows up, says she wants to help people like her daddy does. She doesn't know her daddy hunts corrupt cops. I said shut up. But Brian continues, voice steady, despite his desperate situation. She's going to find out her father was FBI. Going to read about this case in newspapers, going to learn that corrupt officers murdered him because he was trying to protect people. Hayes shifts uncomfortably. Wilson, maybe we should reconsider this approach. No reconsideration, Wilson screams. He destroys us. We destroy him. Simple. Through the warehouse skylights, distant helicopter rotors become audible. Wilson assumes it's police surveillance. He doesn't realize it's federal tactical support approaching Pier 19. Rodriguez's black sedan pulls up outside. The corrupt captain enters the warehouse, carrying a briefcase and wearing latex gloves. "Federal Agent Brian Davis," Rodriguez says formally, "you've caused considerable problems for our organization." "Your criminal organization," Brian corrects. Rodriguez backhands him casually. 18 months of surveillance, wire recordings, financial documentation. How much evidence exists and where is it stored? Brian remains silent. Rodriguez opens his briefcase, revealing torture instruments. "We have all night to extract information." Wait. Outside, Detective Martinez reports to Federal Command. "Subjects entered Warehouse Complex 7, armed and extremely dangerous. Recommend immediate tactical intervention." Sarah Johnson responds, "Federal team in position, initiating rescue operation in 60 seconds. But 60 seconds might be too late. 3 miles away, FBI Special Agent Sarah Johnson receives Detective Martinez's desperate transmission. "Federal agent in immediate mortal danger. Warehouse District, Pier 19, Building 7. Request emergency tactical intervention." "All units converge on target location," Sarah commands into her radio. "Federal agent under active threat. Authorization for deadly force granted. Move now." FBI tactical teams positioned throughout Las Vegas activate simultaneously. Black SUVs race through empty streets. Helicopter surveillance redirects to Pier 19. Federal marshals scramble from field offices across Nevada. The machinery of federal law enforcement mobilizes like a sleeping giant awakening. Inside the warehouse, Rodriguez examines his torture instruments methodically. "Federal investigations require federal evidence, Agent Davis. Tell us where your recordings are stored, and your death becomes quick instead of prolonged." Brian calculates timing. Federal backup needs 5 more minutes to reach optimal tactical position. He has to survive 5 minutes against 7 desperate, violent men. "Recordings are automatically uploaded to federal servers," Brian lies smoothly. "Encrypted cloud storage. Even if you kill me, evidence remains accessible to prosecutors." Rodriguez's confident expression wavers. "Bullshit. No agent operates with that level of automation." Modern federal investigations use advanced technology. Every conversation, every financial transaction, every corrupt meeting has been documented and preserved. Wilson kicks Brian in the ribs. "He's stalling, playing for time." "Time for what?" Rodriguez demands. "No federal backup knows this location." But Rodriguez is wrong. Sarah Johnson's tactical team has surrounded the warehouse complex. Snipers position on adjacent buildings. Surveillance drones map exit routes. Federal agents prepare for coordinated assault. Outside, Detective Martinez positions his patrol car to block the main escape route while maintaining his corrupt officer cover. His FBI wire transmits everything happening inside Building 7 to Federal Command. "Federal Response Team Alpha in position," Sarah hears through her earpiece. "Building secured from north and east approaches. Team Bravo positioned south and west," another voice reports. "All escape routes covered." Rodriguez begins Brian's interrogation with professional brutality. 18 months of investigation. How many officers are compromised? How many federal indictments are planned? Blood runs from Brian's nose, but he smiles despite the pain. "Rodriguez, you're about to find out personally." "What does that mean?" "Check your watch. What time is it?" Rodriguez glances at his wrist automatically. 12:47 a.m. "In exactly 3 minutes," Brian continues calmly, "federal agents are going to breach this building. You'll be in federal custody within 5 minutes. Your casino kickbacks, your union corruption, your murder of Carlos Martinez, all documented with sufficient evidence for life imprisonment." Wilson panics. He's bluffing. The feds don't know we're here. But doubt spreads through the corrupt officers like infection. They've been taking casino money for 3 years, living comfortable lives beyond their police salaries, now facing federal prosecution and decades in prison. "Check the perimeter," Rodriguez orders. "Confirm no federal surveillance." Hayes peers through dirty warehouse windows, sees nothing unusual. Federal tactical teams remain invisible in darkness, positioned beyond visual range with night vision equipment. All clear, Captain. No movement detected. Rodriguez relaxes slightly. Continue interrogation. Agent Davis provides full cooperation or suffers consequences. But Brian's confident demeanor unsettles them. Most victims break down under torture threats. Brian acts like he's already won. You seem remarkably calm for someone about to die, Rodriguez observes. I've been federal law enforcement for 20 years, Brian replies steadily. Faced worse threats than corrupt local cops playing criminals. Wilson hits him with brass knuckles, splitting his cheekbone. Show some fucking respect! Respect? Brian laughs despite bleeding profusely. For criminals wearing badges? For murderers who kill honest cops like Carlos Martinez? Rodriguez's radio crackles with dispatch reports. Multiple federal vehicles observed in warehouse district. FBI tactical teams confirmed. The corrupt officers exchange panicked glances. Impossible, Rodriguez whispers. How did they locate us? Brian's smile grows wider. Detective Martinez has been wearing federal wire for 18 months. Every word you've spoken tonight is recorded evidence. The corrupt officers stare at Martinez with sudden comprehension and rage. You son of a bitch! Wilson screams at Martinez. You're the federal rat! Martinez draws his service weapon, pointing it at Wilson. FBI! Everyone drop your weapons immediately! The warehouse erupts in chaos. 7 corrupt officers against 1 federal agent and 1 wired detective. Outside, Sarah Johnson hears gunshots through Martinez's FBI wire. Federal agent under fire! Breach immediately! Go! 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 Federal tactical teams explode through warehouse entrances simultaneously. Flashbang grenades detonate, disorienting the corrupt officers. Laser sights cut through smoke like red death. FBI, drop your weapons! Drop your weapons now! The siege of Pier 19 begins. Federal flashbang grenades explode like thunder, turning the warehouse into strobing chaos. Smoke fills the air as tactical teams pour through multiple entrances, red laser sights cutting through darkness like deadly fireflies. FBI, drop your weapons! Hands visible! Now! Wilson spins wildly, firing blind shots at advancing federal agents. Rodriguez dives behind rusted police equipment, still clutching his torture instruments. The corrupt officers scatter like roaches when lights come on. In the chaos, Brian rolls behind a concrete pillar, hands still cuffed behind his back. Detective Martinez engages Wilson in a firefight, muzzle flashes lighting their faces like deadly strobe lights. Federal agents, cease fire and surrender immediately! But Wilson's desperation overrides survival instinct. He's facing life imprisonment. Death seems preferable to decades in federal prison. Sarah Johnson's voice booms through a tactical megaphone. Captain Rodriguez, Detective Wilson, you're surrounded by federal agents. Drop your weapons and surrender. Rodriguez emerges from cover, hands raised, torture briefcase abandoned. Professional survival instincts overcome criminal desperation. Don't shoot! I'm surrendering! Wilson continues firing at federal agents, his shots wild and desperate. A federal sniper's bullet catches him in the shoulder, spinning him around. His weapon clatters across concrete. Officer down! Wilson screams. Officer needs assistance! You're not an officer, Special Agent Sarah Johnson announces as she approaches Wilson with federal handcuffs. You're a criminal wearing a badge. Federal tactical teams secure the warehouse systematically. 7 corrupt cops in custody. 1 clean detective safe. 1 federal agent was alive but bloodied. Sarah Johnson approaches Brian, keys ready for his handcuffs. Sorry about the delay, Chief. We wanted ironclad evidence before extraction. Brian stands slowly, professionally, as his federal credentials are returned to him. The handcuffs come off his wrists, leaving angry red marks. He straightens his shoulders, federal authority replacing suburban victims. Special Agent Johnson, Brian says formally. Operation Clean Sweep is concluded. Rodriguez stares in shock from federal handcuffs. Chief? What chief? Sarah Johnson smiles with professional satisfaction. Gentlemen, meet FBI Division Chief Brian Davis. He's not just a federal agent. He's the head of the FBI Organized Crime Task Force for the entire Southwest region. The corrupt officers' faces drain off color completely. "Division Chief," Hayes whispers. "We assaulted an FBI division chief?" "You kidnapped him," Sarah corrects. "Tortured him. Threatened to murder him. All felony assaults on the highest-ranking federal law enforcement officer in Nevada." Whoa. Wilson, bleeding from his shoulder wound, realizes the magnitude of their mistake. "Impossible. He's just a suburban consultant. We verified his background." "You verified his cover identity," Brian explains calmly, wiping blood from his face. 18 months of deep cover operation. Technology consultant Brian Davis was a federal legend created specifically to investigate your corruption network. Rodriguez shakes his head in denial. "No way, we had intelligence on him. Sources confirmed he was asking civilian questions about casino business." "Your sources were federal agents," Sarah reveals. "Detective Martinez, the casino security chief you trusted, the union accountant who provided financial records, all federal assets building evidence for RICO prosecution." Detective Martinez removes his FBI wire, handing it to Sarah. "Every conversation is recorded. Every bribe is documented. 18 months of federal evidence for prosecution." Brian addresses the corrupt officers directly. "Captain Rodriguez, you personally ordered my intimidation tonight. Detective Wilson, you assaulted a federal agent and threatened murder. That's not local police misconduct. That's federal terrorism." Hayes begins crying. 20 years on the force? My pension? My family? What happens to my kids?" "You should have considered your family before taking casino money," Brian responds without sympathy. Federal agents continue securing evidence throughout the warehouse. Crime scene photographers document torture instruments. Financial investigators seize Rodriguez's briefcase containing ledgers of corrupt payments. Wilson struggles against his federal handcuffs. "This is entrapment. Federal agents can't conduct undercover operations against local police." "Actually, we can," Brian corrects. "When local police commit federal crimes, when casino money crosses state lines, when corrupt officers murder federal informants like Carlos Martinez." Rodriguez's face goes white. "How do you know about Carlos?" "Federal investigation, Captain. We know everything." Sarah Johnson reads federal Miranda rights to each corrupt officer. "You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say will be used against you in federal court. You have the right to federal legal representation." Federal court, not local jurisdiction, not police union protection. Federal prosecution with mandatory minimum sentences. The warehouse is filled with federal agents, federal evidence teams, and federal prosecutors. The full weight of federal law enforcement focuses on 7 corrupt local cops who thought they were untouchable. Brian accepts a federal medical kit from Sarah, treating his injuries professionally. "Gentlemen, your corruption network is dismantled. 47 officers facing federal indictments. Casino connections severed. Union leadership arrested." 47 officers? Collins asks desperately. "How many people were you watching?" "Everyone," Brian answers simply. "For 18 months, we watched everyone." The federal agents escort their prisoners toward armored transport vehicles. Rodriguez makes eye contact with Brian one final time. "You destroyed us completely." "No, Captain. You destroyed yourselves. I just documented it." Federal justice has arrived in Las Vegas. Outside Pier 19, federal law enforcement transforms the warehouse district into a command center. FBI mobile units, U.S. Marshal vehicles, and helicopter searchlights create an impenetrable perimeter. "Phase 2 commences now," Brian announces into his secure phone. "Execute simultaneous arrests." Across Las Vegas, federal teams breach 43 locations. Corrupt officers dragged from homes in handcuffs. Police union headquarters raided. Casino offices seized. Rodriguez watches his empire collapse. "How many federal agents were involved?" "Enough," Brian answers. "FBI, DEA, U.S. Marshals, IRS. When corruption involves organized crime, every federal agency responds. Wilson still can't process their defeat. We were careful. Encrypted phones, laundered money through legitimate accounts. You faced federal professionals with unlimited resources, Sarah Johnson corrects. Detective Martinez approaches Brian. Chief, complete evidence secured. Every conversation is recorded. Outstanding work, Agent Martinez. 18 months undercover required exceptional courage. Martinez is FBI too? Hayes asks desperately. Special Agent Carlos Martinez, different from the murdered detective. We use the name to honor our fallen agent. Federal prosecutors arrive with indictments. RICO charges, money laundering, terrorism, each carrying decades of federal prison. Detective Wilson, Prosecutor Walsh announces, you're charged with assault on a federal officer, kidnapping, terrorism, life imprisonment without parole. Wilson breaks down. I have a family, kids in college. You destroyed everything when you became a criminal wearing a badge, Brian responds coldly. The media arrives. CNN, FBI press officers. Headlines explode. FBI dismantles massive police corruption. Rodriguez makes one desperate attempt. Davis, we can deal. Testify against higher casino corruption. You had 18 months to choose justice. Federal prosecution proceeds without deals. Federal agents escort prisoners to armored transport. No local cells where corrupt colleagues might help. As Rodriguez is loaded, he calls out, how long were you planning this? 3 years, since Detective Carlos Martinez reported casino corruption before his murder. The convoy departs. Brian coordinates final evidence collection. Sarah approaches with statistics. 47 arrests, $2.3 million seized, 18 months of evidence. Brian looks across Las Vegas's glittering lights. Federal law enforcement doesn't negotiate with corruption. We eliminate it. Justice served with federal precision. 6 months later, the federal court delivers final verdicts. Judge Patricia Morrison's voice echoes through the packed courtroom. Captain Miguel Rodriguez, life imprisonment without parole. Detective Frank Wilson, life imprisonment without parole. Brian observes from the gallery. Mrs. Patterson and Henderson's neighbors fill several rows. The quiet consultant who watered his lawn revealed himself as the federal officer who cleaned their community. Outside the courthouse, reporters surround Brian. Division Chief Davis, what message does Operation Clean Sweep send? Brian adjusts his federal credentials with quiet authority. Some doors shouldn't be kicked down. Federal justice reaches everyone, regardless of badge or uniform. The same words from that midnight raid, now spoken from federal authority instead of suburban vulnerability. His phone buzzes with Emma's text. Dad, I saw the news. I'm proud you catch bad guys. Emma knows the truth now. Her father doesn't fix computers, he fixes corruption. Brian drives through Henderson past his former surveillance house. New residents live there now, a real technology consultant. The neighborhood has returned to genuine peace. At FBI headquarters, Sarah Johnson briefs emerging cases. Chicago PD shows similar corruption patterns. Assign undercover assets, 18-month surveillance operation, Brian orders. Federal patience continues. In federal prison, Rodriguez stares through barred windows. No casino money, no union protection, just decades of federal time. Wilson shares a neighboring cell, pension forfeited, family destroyed by his choices. Brian returns to his apartment, legitimate federal housing. His refrigerator displays Emma's photos next to federal commendations. Some doors hide federal badges. 18 months of patient investigation reveals more corruption than dramatic confrontations. Tonight, Brian sleeps peacefully. Tomorrow, he investigates the next corruption network. Federal justice never rests. Share your thoughts on police accountability in the comments. Subscribe for more federal justice stories. Corruption exists everywhere, but so do agents ready to expose it.
At Black Voices Uncut, We don't polish away the pain or water down the message. We tell it like it is because the truth deserves nothing less. If today's story spoke to you, click like, join the conversation in the comments, and subscribe so you'll be here for the next Uncut Voice.
Stop. One word from a waitress's lips froze billionaire Robert Hamilton's pen mid-signature. $17 billion of deal-making power halted by a black woman in a server's uniform that nobody had bothered to look at, until now. The executive boardroom fell silent. 11 faces turned from shock to disbelief. Hamilton's sharp eyes shifted sideways. Page 37, paragraph 4, she continued, voice steady despite her racing heart. There's an algorithm flaw that will crash your entire system. The CFO's coffee cup clinked against its saucer. Someone coughed nervously. Hamilton slowly placed his pen down, turning to fully face the woman everyone had treated as invisible just moments before. "And you know this? How?" he asked, not dismissively, but with genuine curiosity. The next 60 seconds would either destroy her life or completely transform it. 6 hours earlier, Alicia Taylor had been awake since 4:30 a.m., hunched over her laptop in the cramped studio apartment she could barely afford. The blue light illuminated her exhausted face as she worked through an advanced algorithm problem from her online MIT OpenCourseware class. "Got it," she whispered, as the solution crystallized in her mind. She quickly typed the final lines of code, watching with satisfaction as the test cases passed one by one. Alicia glanced at her phone. 5:45 a.m. In 45 minutes, she'd need to leave for her first job at the cafe. After that, a quick change into her server's uniform for the evening shift at Lumiere, the high-end restaurant that catered to Manhattan's elite. On her nightstand sat 3 past-due bills and a student loan statement showing $47,623 still outstanding from her unfinished computer science degree. She rubbed her eyes and closed the laptop. Her mind could decipher complex mathematical patterns that baffled PhDs, but her reality was serving coffee and dodging the occasional wandering hand from entitled customers. "Someday," she promised herself, the same words she'd repeated every morning for the past 4 years. She tucked her worn notebook filled with original algorithms and solutions into her backpack, next to her server's uniform. The notebook was her real resume, but no one would ever ask to see it. No one would ever know that the woman refilling their water glasses had once been on track to revolutionize predictive data modeling before family medical bills forced her to drop out of college. Alicia Taylor, invisible to the world, but still calculating, still solving, still hoping. "More water, please." The words were directed at her water pitcher, not at her. Alicia refilled the glass without comment, having long ago mastered the art of silent service at Lumiere. Around her, the restaurant hummed with the particular energy that accompanied money and power. Men and women in tailored suits discussed acquisitions and market predictions over $200 bottles of wine. At table 7, a hedge fund manager was explaining incorrectly how quantum computing would affect cryptocurrency markets. Alicia mentally corrected his explanation as she cleared their appetizer plates, maintaining the pleasant, neutral expression expected of her. "The Technovus deal is closing today," a man at table 9 mentioned to his companion. "Hamilton's getting it for a steal because of their cash problems." Alicia's ears perked up. She'd followed Technovus since its founding. Their predictive algorithm work aligned perfectly with her own research interests. "They'll never solve the core problem, though," his companion replied. "The algorithm looks promising, but there's something fundamentally unstable about it. If only they knew that the invisible woman collecting their bread plates could probably identify the exact issue in minutes." In the kitchen, Chef Bernard barked orders in his affected French accent. "Alicia, VIP table in the private room. Hamilton himself and the Technovus executives. Board meeting running late, they need coffee service." "Yes, chef." Marcus, another server, whistled low. "Hamilton. Worth more than the GDP of some countries. Tip well, and maybe you can pay your rent this month." Alicia arranged the silver coffee service on her tray with practiced precision. Her mind, however, was racing with thoughts of Technovus. Their published papers had fascinated her brilliant concepts, but she'd spotted potential flaws in their approach months ago. "Remember," Marcus whispered as she headed toward the private dining room, "they don't see you. Just pour the coffee and disappear." Alicia nodded. She'd perfected the art of disappearing. The private dining room had been transformed into an impromptu boardroom. Documents were spread across the mahogany table, laptops open, faces intense with concentration. The acquisition papers, hundreds of pages thick, sat before an empty chair at the head of the table. Through the crack in the door, Alicia heard fragments of conversation. "Stock options will transfer immediately. Retention packages for key engineers. IP rights fully secured in Section 37. Alicia entered silently with the coffee service, moving around the perimeter of the room. The executives continued their discussion as if she were merely another piece of furniture. At 52, Robert Hamilton cut an imposing figure even while seated. His reputation preceded him: ruthless when necessary, brilliant always, and according to industry rumors, surprisingly ethical in an industry not known for its scruples. He had turned around 7 failing tech companies in the past decade, transforming them into industry leaders. "The papers are ready, Robert," said a sharp-featured man Alicia recognized as Technovus's CFO from their website. "Once you sign, we begin the integration process tomorrow." Hamilton nodded, his expression revealing nothing. "And the core algorithm issues?" "Solved," replied a nervous-looking man with thick glasses. "We've patched the instability. The system is fully operational." Alicia poured coffee for the CFO, her hand steady despite the jolt of interest she felt. She knew Technovus's published work intimately. If they were discussing the neural network's stability issues, she had strong doubts they'd actually solved the problem. As she moved around the table, Hamilton entered the room, advisors flanking him like an entourage around royalty. The moment of truth had arrived. Alicia's eyes flicked to the documents as she poured coffee for each executive. Years of serving had taught her to read upside down and sideways. A skill that began as a way to pass time had become second nature. Most of the acquisition papers were standard legal jargon, but as she reached the far side of the table, page 37 lay exposed. The technical specifications appendix detailed documentation of Technovus's proprietary algorithms was visible. Her heart skipped a beat. There it was, the fatal flaw she'd suspected from their published papers. Their neural network used a modified backpropagation approach that, according to the documentation, had been stabilized using a compensatory function. But the compensatory function itself contained a mathematical error. A subtle mistake in the differential equation that would compound exponentially under real-world data loads. Within months of implementation, the entire system would collapse. The algorithm wouldn't just fail, it would corrupt all processed data. Hamilton was about to pay billions for technology that was fundamentally flawed. She poured his coffee last, noticing how everyone straightened slightly when his attention turned to them. He thanked her, the only person who had acknowledged her presence since she entered the room. The Technovus CEO slid the signature pages forward. "Shall we make history today?" Hamilton reached into his suit jacket and withdrew an elegant fountain pen. Alicia should walk away. This wasn't her business. This wasn't her world. But she knew the truth. A truth worth billions. A truth no one would expect her to know. She watched Hamilton position his pen above the signature line. Say nothing and remain invisible. Speak up and risk everything. 3 seconds. That's how long Alicia had to decide. Her mind raced through the consequences. Best case, they listen, verify her finding, she's thanked and dismissed, perhaps with a generous tip. Worst case, she's fired on the spot, blacklisted from every restaurant in the city, labeled as crazy or, worse, manipulative, trying to extort the wealthy with false claims. She'd be giving up the financial stability of a reliable job, meager as it was. She'd be risking the recommendation she needed for a better position at the Michelin-starred restaurant across town. Hamilton was beginning to lower his pen. A memory flashed her mother working double shifts as a hospital cleaner, telling her, "Your brain is your ticket, Alicia. Don't let anyone tell you where you belong." Another memory. Her advanced algorithms professor, before she had to drop out, saying she had one of the most innovative minds he'd encountered in 30 years of teaching. The pen was now millimeters from the paper. What did she have to lose, really? Another day of being invisible? Another year of watching her potential drain away while serving coffee to people who would never see her? The room seemed to slow down around her. Her heart hammered against her ribs. "Stop!" The word left her lips before she could reconsider. Hamilton's hand froze, his pen hovering above the signature line. 11 pairs of eyes turned toward her in stunned disbelief. Alicia felt her throat constrict, but forced herself to continue. Page 37, paragraph 4. There's an algorithm flaw that will crash your entire system. The silence that followed seemed to stretch for eternity. She could hear her own pulse thundering in her ears. The Technovus CFO recovered first, his face flushing deep crimson. "Excuse me? Who do you think you are?" Hamilton hadn't moved, his piercing gaze now fully focused on Alicia. "Explain," he said simply. Alicia took a deep breath. "The compensatory function in your neural network model. The differential equation has an error in the denominator. Under high data loads, it will create an exponential instability cascade." The technical director of Technovus shot to his feet. "This is outrageous! How dare you!" Hamilton raised one hand, silencing him instantly. "Continue." "Your current test environments don't stress the system enough to trigger the flaw," Alicia explained, surprised by the steadiness in her voice. "But in real-world implementation, with variable data streams and peak usage scenarios, the algorithm will fail catastrophically within 4 to 6 months. And when it does, it will corrupt all processed data." The Technovus CEO laughed nervously. "Mr. Hamilton, surely you're not taking coffee shop gossip seriously when our top engineers have certified—" "I'm not finished," Alicia interrupted, meeting Hamilton's gaze directly. "I can prove it." Every face in the room showed some variation of shock, anger, or disbelief, except Hamilton's. His expression held something far more dangerous: curiosity. The boardroom remained frozen in a tableau of disbelief. Coffee stopped mid-pour, papers half-shuffled, mouths slightly open. Hamilton broke the silence first. "Everyone out," he commanded. "Except you," he added, nodding to Alicia. "And Vaughn." He gestured to his chief technology officer. "Robert, this is absurd," protested the Technovus CEO, adjusting his tie nervously. "You can't possibly—" "My company, my rules, my decision," Hamilton replied, his tone leaving no room for argument. "We'll reconvene in 1 hour." The executives filed out, shooting venomous glances at Alicia. The Technovus CFO deliberately bumped her shoulder as he passed, causing coffee to slosh from the pot onto her uniform. When the door closed, Hamilton gestured to a chair. "Sit." Alicia placed the coffee pot down and sat, acutely aware of her stained uniform and the vast power imbalance in the room. "Name?" Hamilton asked. "Alicia Taylor." "And your background in neural network algorithms is—" This was the moment. The question that would determine if she'd be escorted from the building or heard out. "I completed 3 years of computer science with a focus on AI at MIT before financial circumstances forced me to leave. I've continued studying independently for the past 4 years while working." Hamilton exchanged a glance with his CTO, Vaughn, a gray-haired man with kind eyes and a skeptical expression. "Show me exactly what you're talking about," Hamilton said, sliding the technical documents toward her. Alicia pointed to the mathematical notation on page 37. "Here. The compensatory function uses a modified Lipschitz condition, but there's an error in how the gradient descent is stabilized." Vaughn leaned forward, eyes narrowing as he studied the equation. In simple terms, Alicia continued, they've created a mathematical backdoor. It works in controlled environments but will catastrophically fail under real-world conditions. Hamilton studied her face, not the document. That's a bold claim from someone serving coffee. The math doesn't care who I am, Alicia replied, meeting his gaze. And neither should you. The door burst open as Technovus's technical director, Dr. Landry, stormed back in, followed by their CFO. This is completely inappropriate, Landry sputtered, waving a tablet. I've looked up Ms. Taylor in our database. She's not affiliated with any competing firm. She has no advanced degree, no publications, no credentials whatsoever. The CFO crossed his arms. She's a waitress, Robert. A waitress trying to sabotage a multi-billion-dollar deal at the last minute. The question is why? Hamilton remained unruffled. The why is simple. Either she's right or she's wrong. That's what interests me. Our algorithms have been verified by 3 independent auditing firms, Landry insisted, placing a stack of reports on the table. Teams of PhDs have examined every line of code. And yet, Hamilton mused, none of them found what Ms. Taylor claims to have identified in the few seconds it took her to pour coffee. Alicia felt their stares like physical pressure. She'd stepped into a world where people like her were supposed to remain silent and invisible. Every instinct told her to apologize, back down, retreat to safety. Instead, she pointed to Landry's tablet. May I? Landry clutched it protectively. Absolutely not. Our proprietary... Give it to her, Hamilton interrupted. Reluctantly, Landry slid the tablet across the table. Alicia quickly navigated to the calculation software and began typing, her fingers flying across the screen. What are you doing? Landry demanded. Creating a simplified demonstration. She worked for 2 minutes in complete silence, aware of everyone watching her every move. The CFO leaned toward Hamilton. This is a waste of valuable time. We have a signing schedule. Time is the one thing I have plenty of, Hamilton replied. Integrity of information is what I can't afford to waste. Alicia finished and turned the tablet around. This simulation compresses 6 months of operation into a visualization. The red cascading failure you'll see is what will happen to your entire system. She pressed play, and they all watched as the elegant network diagram operated smoothly for several seconds before beginning to show tiny red errors that rapidly multiplied until the entire system pulsed angry red. Parlor tricks, the CFO dismissed with a wave of his hand. Anyone can design a simulation to fail. Hamilton had been watching Alicia, not the tablet. Vaughn? His CTO cleared his throat. The demonstration is concerning. The mathematics appear sound, but I'd need to run a full diagnostic against their actual code base to verify. That would take days, protested Landry, and violate our confidentiality agreements before the sale is finalized. Hamilton sat back, fingers steepled beneath his chin. Here's what we're going to do. Ms. Taylor will be given access to a testing environment with your code. Vaughn will supervise. If she can prove her claim, we renegotiate the entire deal. If she's wrong, we proceed as planned, and she receives a generous consultation fee for her time. The CFO's face reddened. You can't be serious. She's a server. Who happens to understand your technology better than you do? Hamilton replied coolly. At least that's her claim. I'm simply suggesting we test it. Landry adjusted his glasses nervously. And if we refuse this unorthodox arrangement? Then I walk away, Hamilton said simply. I've built my reputation on making smart investments, not rushing into flawed ones. The room fell silent as the Technovus executives exchanged panicked glances. Their company was weeks away from insolvency. Without Hamilton's investment, they were finished. Landry nodded stiffly. Fine. 1 hour. As they left to set up the test environment, Hamilton turned to Alicia. Why did you speak up? The truth. Alicia considered her answer carefully. Because it was wrong. People see wrong every day and stay silent. I'm not people, she replied. And if I'd stayed silent, I wouldn't have been able to live with myself. A ghost of a smile touched Hamilton's lips. You realize what's at stake. If you're wrong, you've wasted everyone's time on an enormous scale. And if I'm right, then you've saved me billions and Tech Novus from eventual collapse. Hamilton studied her intently. Either way, your life changes today. Alicia nodded, her hands steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. I'm ready. The conference room had been hastily converted into a testing lab. 3 monitors displayed code, while a whiteboard was covered with equations. Tech Novus's entire technical team had been summoned, their expressions ranging from skeptical to openly hostile. Alicia stood before the whiteboard in her stained server's uniform, dry erase marker in hand instead of a coffee pot. The fundamental issue, she began, drawing a series of nested functions, is in how your compensatory algorithm handles gradient descent with non-normalized data streams. Dr. Landry snorted. That's precisely why we implemented the modified Lipschitz condition. Which would work, Alicia agreed, except for this. She circled a portion of the equation already on the board. Your denominator includes a dynamic variable that, under specific conditions, can approach 0. One of the younger engineers leaned forward, frowning. But our test scenarios don't create those specific conditions, Alicia finished. They're edge cases that only appear under real-world data loads. She drew rapidly, filling the whiteboard with mathematical notation. The room fell silent except for the squeak of the marker. Even the most hostile executives were watching intently now. When these 3 conditions occur simultaneously, she explained, circling key variables, your compensatory function doesn't just fail. It amplifies the error. Each cycle through the neural network compounds the problem exponentially. Vaughn, Hamilton's CTO, nodded slowly. She's right. It's a mathematical certainty. Dr. Landry turned pale. Impossible. We would have found this. You weren't looking for it, Alicia replied simply. Your test environments are too controlled. You're checking if the algorithm works, not how it might fail. She turned to the main monitor, where her simulation now ran against their actual code base. The predicted failure cascade appeared exactly as she had demonstrated earlier. The room erupted in commotion, engineers checking calculations, executives huddling in tense conversation. Hamilton remained seated, watching Alicia with undisguised interest. She had transformed before his eyes, the hesitant server replaced by a confident technical expert who commanded the room, despite her uniform, and the opposition she faced. When he finally spoke, his voice cut through the chaos. How would you fix it? The question silenced everyone. Alicia approached the whiteboard again, aware that every eye in the room was on her. The solution requires restructuring the compensatory function, she explained, erasing part of the equation and redrawing it. Instead of using a dynamic denominator, you need a bounded function that never approaches 0. She worked quickly, deriving a new mathematical approach in real time. The Tech Novus engineers watched in stunned silence. Where did you learn to do this? Asked one of the younger engineers, respect evident in his voice. Alicia continued writing as she answered. I started at MIT on scholarship. My mother was diagnosed with aggressive cancer during my 3rd year. The insurance wouldn't cover experimental treatments, so I left school to work full-time. Her marker never stopped moving across the whiteboard. But I kept studying. Online courses, research papers, open-source projects. I built simulations on my laptop between shifts. Dr. Landry frowned. Without formal supervision or peer review? The internet became my peer review, Alicia replied. I contribute to AI forums under a username. Some of my proofs have been incorporated into open-source projects. She finished writing and stepped back from the whiteboard. I'm not technically credentialed, but I am qualified. Hamilton studied the complex mathematics she'd produced. Which username? Math Ninja 4407. Vaughn's eyebrows shot up. Your Math Ninja? Your optimization algorithm for multi-dimensional arrays is brilliant. We've been using a modified version in our systems for over a year. Several engineers exchanged glances of newfound respect. The solution I've outlined, Alicia continued, pointing to her work, doesn't just fix the instability. It actually improves overall system performance by reducing computational overhead by approximately 17%. Hamilton nodded slowly. Run the simulation. Fingers flying across the keyboard, Alicia implemented her solution into the test environment. The room held its collective breath as the simulation began to run. On the largest monitor, a visualization showed data flowing through the neural network. No red errors appeared. The system remained stable even as Alicia increased the simulated load to 5 times normal operating conditions. Impossible, whispered Dr. Landry, adjusting his glasses as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing. One of Technovus's senior engineers ran a series of diagnostic tests, shaking his head in disbelief. The system isn't just stable, it's more efficient. Processing speed is up 22% across all test cases. The atmosphere in the room shifted perceptibly. Technical staff who had been dismissive were now examining Alicia's equations with intense interest. Several were taking photos of the whiteboard with their phones. Vaughn completed his own analysis and turned to Hamilton. She's correct on all counts. The original algorithm contained a fatal flaw that would have manifested within months of full deployment. Her solution is elegant and superior to the original design. Hamilton hadn't taken his eyes off Alicia throughout the demonstration. Ms. Taylor, would you step outside with me for a moment? In the hallway, away from the others, Hamilton studied her with newfound respect. You just saved me from making a $3.4 billion mistake. Alicia straightened her shoulders. The technology is still valuable. It just needed fixing. Indeed. Hamilton nodded thoughtfully. And now I find myself with an interesting dilemma. I'm about to acquire a company whose core technology you understand better than their entire engineering team. He paused, considering his next words carefully. What is your current salary at the restaurant? Alicia blinked, caught off guard by the question. $32,000 a year, plus tips. I see. Hamilton checked his watch. We should return. They'll be getting anxious. As they walked back toward the conference room, Hamilton added casually, I think it's time we discussed your new position. Alicia stopped mid-stride. What? I don't let talent walk out the door, Ms. Taylor. Especially not talent that just saved me billions. When they re-entered the conference room, the atmosphere was tense. The Technovus executives had huddled at one end of the table, whispering urgently. They fell silent as Hamilton took his seat. Gentlemen, Hamilton began, it appears we have 2 issues to address. First, the technical flaw in your core algorithm, which Ms. Taylor has not only identified but corrected. Second, the fact that this flaw somehow escaped detection by your entire engineering team. The CFO leaned forward. Mr. Hamilton, while we appreciate Ms. Taylor's input, this could have been a simple coincidence. Anyone can get lucky once. Luck? Alicia couldn't help but interject. The mathematics are deterministic. There's no luck involved. What I mean, the CFO continued, his tone condescending, is that spotting one issue doesn't qualify someone to make sweeping judgments about our technology. Perhaps Ms. Taylor should return to her regular duties while we technical professionals discuss the implications. Hamilton's expression remained neutral. Ms. Taylor stays. In fact, I'm offering her a position as lead algorithm architect for the acquisition transition, reporting directly to Vaughn. The announcement landed like a bomb. Dr. Landry's face flushed crimson. That's preposterous. We have PhDs who've spent decades, who missed what she found in minutes, Hamilton interrupted. Results speak for themselves. The Technova's CEO cleared his throat. Robert, I understand you're impressed, but this is highly irregular. We have protocols, hierarchies. Our team has legitimate concerns about bringing in an outsider at such a senior level. Alicia felt the weight of their stares, the resentment, the indignation, the disbelief that someone like her could disrupt their carefully ordered world. With all due respect, the CFO added, not sounding respectful at all, how do we know she didn't deliberately plant this issue to manipulate her way into a job? This could be an elaborate con. The accusation hung in the air. Several executives nodded in agreement, seemingly relieved someone had voiced their suspicions. Hamilton turned to Alicia, his expression unreadable. An interesting theory. Care to respond? Alicia felt a chill run through her. The temporary alliance was fracturing. Her moment of triumph was transforming into something far more precarious. If I were trying to con my way into a job, Alicia replied steadily, I wouldn't have chosen a method so easily verified or disproven. Hamilton nodded slightly, then made a decision. Let's settle this definitively. He turned to Dr. Landry. Your neural network wasn't your only project. What else was your team working on that hit roadblocks? Landry hesitated, then reluctantly answered. We have an unsolved optimization problem in our quantum computing division. The coherence issue. Perfect, Hamilton interrupted. Ms. Taylor hasn't seen that work. If she can provide insight on a completely separate problem, it should address these concerns. The Technovus executives exchanged uneasy glances. The CEO leaned toward Hamilton. Robert, that project has stumped our best people for months. This is unnecessary and will only waste more time. I disagree. Hamilton's tone was final. Vaughn, please retrieve the quantum computing files. As Vaughn left to obtain the files, Alicia felt panic rising. Quantum computing was cutting edge, she'd studied the basics, but it wasn't her specialty. This challenge could expose the limits of her self-education. When Vaughn returned with a secure tablet, Hamilton addressed the room. No hints, no guidance. Ms. Taylor will have 30 minutes to review the problem. Then we'll reconvene. Alicia was escorted to a small meeting room. The door closed behind her with a soft click that felt surprisingly final. The quantum coherence problem was far more complex than she'd anticipated. The mathematics involved multidimensional matrices and quantum field theory that stretched the limits of her knowledge. Page after page of failed approaches from Technovus's team showed just how many brilliant minds had already attempted solutions. 20 minutes passed, then 25. Sweat beaded on her forehead as she struggled to find an approach. This wasn't like the algorithm flaw, a clear error she could identify and fix. This was pushing into unknown territory. With 2 minutes remaining, she still had nothing concrete, just fragments of ideas, none fully formed. For the first time that day, Alicia wondered if she had overreached. Perhaps she truly was out of her depth. The door opened precisely 30 minutes later. Vaughn stood there, his expression neutral. They're ready for you. Walking back into the boardroom felt like approaching a firing squad. The executives watched her with a mixture of skepticism and barely concealed hope that she would fail. Hamilton gestured to the whiteboard. Whenever you're ready, Ms. Taylor. Alicia stood frozen, the marker heavy in her hand. The room waited in silence. She began, then faltered. The quantum coherence problem is significantly more complex than the algorithm issue. The CFO smirked. As we expected. Something in his smug satisfaction triggered a memory, her high school physics teacher telling her she'd never understand advanced concepts, that some minds weren't built for science. The countless rejections from internships despite perfect test scores. The hiring manager who suggested she try something more suitable than programming. A lifetime of being underestimated, overlooked, dismissed. I don't have a complete solution, she admitted, watching their expressions shift toward triumph. Not yet. She turned to the whiteboard and began writing. But I believe you're approaching the problem from the wrong angle entirely. Her marker moved with increasing confidence. You've been trying to maintain quantum coherence by isolating the system from environmental interference. But what if, instead, you could use that interference constructively? She outlined a theoretical approach that leveraged environmental noise as part of the computation process rather than fighting against it. This is preliminary, she cautioned, but the mathematics suggests it could extend coherence by a factor of at least 7 compared to your current approach. Dr. Landry stepped forward, studying her work intently. The room held its breath. This is, he began, then stopped, recalibrating his response. This is unlike anything we've tried. Would it work? Hamilton asked directly. Landry adjusted his glasses, conflicting emotions playing across his face. It's innovative, counterintuitive, but he traced one of her equations with his finger. Yes, theoretically, it could work. The admission clearly cost him, but the mathematics was undeniable. Hamilton turned to Alicia, a glimmer of something like pride in his eyes. It seems, Ms. Taylor, that lightning can indeed strike twice. 3 days later, Alicia sat in a glass-walled office that had been hastily repurposed for her use. She'd been given a temporary security badge, access to the Technovus codebase, and a team of engineers who regarded her with a mixture of respect, curiosity, and lingering suspicion. She'd spent every waking moment refining her approach to the quantum coherence problem, sleeping on a couch in the break room rather than returning to her apartment. The restaurant had already replaced her, a brief phone call informing her that her position had been filled when she failed to show up for her shift. She had burned her bridges. Now everything depended on proving herself. A soft knock on the door interrupted her concentration. It was Vaughn, Hamilton's CTO. "How's it coming along?" he asked, settling into a chair opposite her desk. Alicia ran a hand through her hair, aware she looked exhausted. "I think I've got it." She turned her monitor so he could see the simulation results. "The approach works. By reconfiguring the quantum gates to actually incorporate environmental decoherence into the computational model, we can extend coherence time by a factor of 12. Vaughn leaned forward, eyes widening as he reviewed the data. "This is remarkable. You've essentially turned the system's greatest weakness into a strength." "It's not just theoretical anymore," Alicia continued, her fatigue giving way to excitement. "I've implemented a working prototype. The test results are consistent across all scenarios." "Hamilton wants a demonstration at the board meeting this afternoon," Vaughn said. "Are you ready for that?" Alicia nodded. The past 3 days had transformed her in ways she was still processing. She'd gone from pouring coffee to leading quantum computing breakthroughs in less than a week. "There's something else," she added, pulling up another set of files. "While working on the coherence problem, I noticed an opportunity to optimize the neural network algorithm even further." She showed him a new approach that integrated elements of both systems. "This hybrid architecture increases processing efficiency by 43% while reducing power consumption by nearly half." Vaughn stared at the screen, then at her. "You created this as a side project?" Alicia smiled for the first time in days. "I had some extra time at night." The boardroom fell silent as the final simulation completed its run. On the large display screen, performance metrics showed results that exceeded even Alicia's projections. Dr. Landry was the first to speak. "I've been working in quantum computing for 17 years, he said slowly. "What Ms. Taylor has accomplished in 3 days would normally take a team of specialists months, if not years." The admission clearly cost him, but his scientific integrity had won out over his pride. The Technovus CEO leaned forward. "And you're certain these results can be replicated in production environments?" Absolutely, Alicia confirmed. Alicia. I've run stress tests under every conceivable condition. The architecture is fundamentally sound. One by one, the technical experts in the room acknowledged what had become undeniable. Alicia's breakthrough wasn't just an incremental improvement, it was a paradigm shift. Even the CFO, her most vocal critic, remained silent, unable to argue with the data displayed before them. Hamilton had observed the entire presentation without comment. Now he rose from his seat at the head of the table. Dr. Landry, he said, in your professional assessment, what would this breakthrough mean for Technovus's market position? Landry removed his glasses, cleaning them thoughtfully before responding. With Ms. Taylor's innovations implemented, we'd leapfrog every competitor in the field. This would put us at least 2 years ahead of anything currently in development. And the commercial applications? Limitless, Landry admitted. From financial modeling to pharmaceutical research to climate prediction, any field that requires complex predictive analysis would benefit enormously. Hamilton paced slowly at the front of the boardroom, considering the information presented. The acquisition deal was originally structured at $3.4 billion, he stated, based on technology that, as Ms. Taylor demonstrated, contained a fatal flaw. The Technovus executives shifted uncomfortably. However, Hamilton continued, with the implementation of these breakthroughs, the company's value has increased substantially. He stopped pacing. I'm prepared to offer $4.7 billion with accelerated integration of your team into Hamilton Technologies. Gasps and murmurs filled the room. The CEO could barely contain his shock. That's extremely generous, Robert. It's not generosity, it's business, Hamilton replied. But there's one non-negotiable condition. He turned to Alicia, who had remained standing quietly by the presentation screen. Ms. Taylor will be appointed head of algorithm development for the new division, with full authority to build her team and direct research priorities. The room fell silent again, but this time with a different quality recognition of a power shift that had become undeniable. Her compensation package will start at 20 times her previous salary, with appropriate stock options and performance bonuses. Alicia felt the room spin slightly, from $32,000 to $640,000 overnight. Any objections? Hamilton asked, though his tone made clear he wasn't actually seeking input. The CFO cleared his throat. Robert, with all due respect to Ms. Taylor's contributions, such an unprecedented promotion has been earned through unprecedented results, Hamilton interrupted. Talent recognizes talent, John. That's how we stay ahead. He turned to Alicia. Do you accept the position? Standing there in clothes she'd worn for 3 days straight, having not slept properly in just as long, Alicia felt her life bifurcating everything before this moment, and everything after. I accept, she said simply. 1 week later, Alicia sat in a green room at the Javits Center, watching on a monitor as Hamilton addressed a packed technology conference. She wore a tailored suit that cost more than 3 months of her former rent, selected by the stylist Hamilton's team had arranged for her. The future of predictive analytics isn't just about bigger data sets or faster processors, Hamilton was saying to the audience of industry leaders and tech journalists. It's about fundamental innovations in how we approach the mathematics of prediction itself. A makeup artist made final touches to Alicia's appearance. In the past week, she'd been through a crash course in corporate communication, executive presence, and media training. Today, I'm announcing not just the acquisition of Technovus, Hamilton continued, but a revolutionary new direction for our combined quantum AI division. He paused, scanning the audience. This breakthrough wasn't developed by our existing research teams. It wasn't created in a prestigious university lab. It came from somewhere, and someone unexpected. A production assistant appeared at Alicia's side. 2 minutes, Ms. Taylor. On the monitor, Hamilton was building to his conclusion. The most valuable resource in technology isn't venture capital or market share. Its human potential often found in places we forget to look. Alicia took a deep breath, remembering her talking points, mentally preparing for the biggest moment of her professional life. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the architect of our new quantum neural network platform and the head of our algorithm development division, Alicia Taylor. As she walked onto the stage, the applause washing over her, Alicia caught sight of her mother in the front row, tears streaming down her face, clapping harder than anyone. The invisible woman had become impossible to overlook. 3 weeks after the conference, Alicia returned to Lumiere Restaurant not as a server, but as a guest. Marcus, her former colleague, dropped a water glass when he recognized her sitting at the best table in the house. The maitre d', who had once reprimanded her for taking too long on breaks, now hovered attentively, ensuring her experience was flawless. "Is everything to your satisfaction, Ms. Taylor?" he asked, with a deference that would have been comical if it weren't so pointed a reminder of how quickly perceptions could change. "Everything is excellent, thank you," she replied politely. At a nearby table, she overheard a conversation about the Tech Novus miracle. Her breakthrough had already become the talk of the industry, with the company's stock soaring 47% since the announcement. Chef Bernard emerged from the kitchen, approaching her table with an anxious smile. "Ms. Taylor, it is such an honor to have you dining with us tonight. Perhaps a special dessert, prepared personally." The same chef who had once berated her for being 30 seconds late now treated her like royalty. The irony wasn't lost on her. She was the same person she had been a month ago, same mind, same abilities, same character. Only the world's perception had changed. "The complexity cascade should be mitigated by implementing the bounded function here," Alicia explained, drawing a quick notation on the whiteboard that dominated one wall of her new office. Around the conference table sat her team's 7 PhDs, 3 former research directors, and a mathematics prodigy recruited from Stanford. They watched attentively as she outlined the next phase of their quantum neural network development. Through the glass walls, she could see the Hamilton Technologies campus stretching out below 20 acres of cutting-edge research facilities where over 2,000 of the brightest minds in technology now worked. And on this floor, in this division, they worked for her. "Dr. Winters, I'd like your team to focus on optimizing the coherence parameters," she continued, addressing a distinguished older man who had initially been the most skeptical of her appointment. "Dr. Chen, your group will handle the integration protocols." As the meeting concluded and her team filed out, Dr. Winters lingered behind. "I owe you an apology, Alicia," he said quietly. "I was among those who questioned your appointment most vocally." Alicia smiled. "But not anymore?" "Not since watching you work." He shook his head in admiration. "You see connections the rest of us miss. It's remarkable. It's—" After he left, Alicia stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of her office, looking out at the New York skyline. On her desk sat the worn notebook she'd carried in her backpack for years, filled with ideas and algorithms scribbled during breaks between serving tables. Next to it lay the latest issue of Technology Review with her face on the cover, alongside the headline, "The Waitress Who Rewrote the Rules of Quantum AI." She had crossed worlds, and now she was rewriting the rules of both. 1 year later, Alicia stood at a podium in MIT's largest lecture hall, facing hundreds of students. Behind her, a massive screen displayed the quantum neural network architecture that had become known in the industry simply as the Taylor method. "The algorithm you're looking at is now processing climate data for 17 countries," she explained. "It's helping predict weather patterns with 89% greater accuracy than previous systems, potentially saving thousands of lives from extreme weather events." The students' future engineers and scientists watched with rapt attention. "But the technology isn't the most important part of this story," she continued. "What matters is that innovation can come from anywhere, from anyone, if they're given the chance to be heard." In the year since her discovery, Alicia had established a foundation that provided scholarships to promising students from underprivileged backgrounds. 37 young people were now attending top universities because of her funding. She had also implemented a radical hiring practice at her division, blind problem-solving challenges that allowed candidates to demonstrate their abilities without revealing their backgrounds, degrees, or traditional credentials. The result was one of the most diverse and innovative teams in the industry, consistently outperforming more traditionally assembled research groups. Talent doesn't come with prerequisites, she told the students. It just needs opportunity. After her MIT lecture, Alicia joined Hamilton for dinner at a small, exclusive restaurant overlooking the Charles River. "That was quite a speech," he said as they were seated. "You've become quite the inspirational figure." "I've had a good teacher," she replied with a smile. Hamilton studied her for a moment. "You know, in 30 years of business, that day in the boardroom when you spoke up remains one of the most extraordinary moments I've witnessed." "Sometimes I still can't believe I did it," Alicia admitted. "I've been thinking about that moment," Hamilton continued. "About how many other Alicias are out there right now, serving coffee, driving ride shares, stocking shelves, brilliant minds the world hasn't noticed yet." He looked out at the river, reflective. "We have systems designed to identify talent in traditional places, elite universities, established companies, but we're blind to the potential that exists everywhere else." "That's why the foundation is so important to me," Alicia said. "It's not just about funding, it's about recognition." Hamilton nodded. "Do you know what I've learned from your story, Alicia? Talent doesn't always wear the right uniform." He smiled. "Sometimes brilliance serves coffee." "The question is," Alicia added, "who are we all overlooking right now? And what could they achieve if someone just took a moment to truly see them?" If you believe talent deserves to be recognized, no matter where it's found, join our community of storytellers and dreamers. Subscribe to Beat Stories now and never miss another life-changing tale. Like this video if you've ever been underestimated or if you've discovered potential in someone others missed. Share your own story in the comments. Who in your life has hidden talents the world needs to see? Beat Stories, where ordinary moments become extraordinary lives.